welcome back to another video. Thanks to a request, this video is going to be about eggs. I asked for any specific thing about eggs and I got, no, just eggs. Do whatever you want with the topic of eggs. So yeah, here we are doing a video on eggs. So in order to narrow down that rather wide topic, to say the least, I am going to be focusing on terrestrial eggs today, and I'm going to start way back at the very beginning when it comes to eggs on land. When the supercontinent Pangaea formed about 350 million years ago, the amount of available coastline for animals dramatically reduced. Now this presented a challenge for animals which lived on land because they still had to reproduce relying on water. They had to return to the water to breed. Being able to breed without relying on water would give an animal an increased chance at successfully reproducing and reduce the competition that they face with other animals. This is basically where the evolutionary path for shelled eggs began. Around 310 million years ago, Hylonomous lyelli evolved. This is currently believed to be the oldest known reptile. However, there is a bit of debate about whether it really was a reptile or if it was an amphibian. Regardless of that, it was the first animal to develop the amniotic egg. Amniotic eggs are so named because they contain amnion, a fluid-filled membrane which protects the embryo, and that fluid is known as amniotic fluid. Organisms which bore young through amniotic eggs were known as ammonites, and being able to lay their eggs on land allowed them to diversify quite quickly. This diversification eventually led to the evolution of three major taxonomic classes: reptilia, or reptiles, aves, or birds, and mammalia, or mammals. Now obviously a lot has changed in the egg structure since 310 million years ago. So let's break down some of those differences in those taxonomic groups that initially evolved from Hylonomous lyelli. Birds tend to be the first thing you really think about when you think about eggs. Bird eggs show a massive range of diversity in size, colour, shape, texture, clutch size, incubation period. There is a massive range of egg diversity that occurs in birds. However, the overall egg structure does have consistent similarities throughout all bird species. These include having a yolk, primarily made of lipoproteins, an albumen or egg white, which is very rich in proteins, and a hard shell, which is mainly composed of calcium carbonate. There are variations in the overall chemical components and the percentages of these components within each different species' egg, and this is what leads to the different colours, patterns and textures that we see. For example, the distinct blue-green colour that we see in emu eggs is caused by a chemical known as biliverdin, which is also partially responsible for the green colour in our bruisers. When it comes to the shape of bird eggs, the majority are oval, but there is quite a lot of diversity between these shapes and species. For many birds which tend to rest on cliff edges, their eggs are more conical in shape, which prevents them from rolling off. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have hole nesting birds, which tend to have eggs which are more symmetrical and round in shape. If you look at the eggs of the common murre or the Atlantic puffin, these have very conical shapes. They're rather asymmetrical, and this is because those birds nest on cliff edges. However, if you look at the brown hawk owl, they have much more rounded, symmetrical eggs because they nest in the holes of hollowed out trees. There are a lot more complexities to what makes an egg get its shape in birds, and I have linked a paper below where it discusses some more of those complex things which can lead to different egg shapes. Egg laying in reptiles has a somewhat of the sporadic evolutionary history, I guess you could say. Some have continued to lay eggs throughout the lineage, some have gone to live bearing, and some went from egg laying to bearing live young and then back to egg laying. So basically they re-evolved the egg laying trait. As in birds, reptiles show a lot of diversity when it comes to their eggs, especially in their clutch size. In many species of reptile, there has been a distinct correlation between the size of the mother and the number of eggs laid. As the size of the reptile gets longer, the amount of eggs she lays increases. Eggshell structure also varies quite significantly between species as well. You have some species laying very soft and flexible eggs, some laying ones which are hard and brittle, and a whole realm of differences in between. Snakes predominantly lay those very rubbery eggs that you may associate with reptiles. These membranous eggs contain a lot of yolk able to support the young as it is developing, and those baby snakes have what we call a egg tooth, which allows them to rip through that membranous egg when it's time for them to hatch. Tortoises, on the other hand, have very hard and brittle eggs, and this is because the proportion of calcium carbonate that they have in their eggs is significantly larger than in many other reptile species. It's why they have much harder eggs than those snake's leathery ones. Now let's discuss mammals. As I previously mentioned in my last shark video, mammals are primarily viviparous, which means they give birth to live young. However, the exception to that is the taxonomic group within mammals known as monotremes. Monotremes are composed of 5 extant species, this being the platypus and 4 species of echidna. When the first live specimen of a platypus was brought over to Europe in 1799, many scientists actually believed it was a hoax. It had aspects of a beaver, a rat and a duck, and initially scientists thought it may have been stitched together from different animal carcasses. However, when this specimen was looked at more in depth and another preserved specimen was brought back, they realised that nope, this is a very real animal which exists. On top of its very strange appearance, the platypus also has a lot of other oddities about it. It has webbed feet with venomous spurs. It has electroreceptors on its duck-shaped bill. Females also produce milk from pores in their skin, and then to top it off, they lay eggs. The eggs of platypuses are often compared to reptiles. They're rather leathery and they have that extremely large yolk, which is a signature characteristic of reptile eggs. Similarly, the echidna was also seen as a rather strange creature when first discovered, though not quite to the extent that the platypus was. Like the platypus, echidnas also have those leathery eggs, and it's also what gave them their name of echidna. In Greek mythology, the echidna was a creature which was half woman and half snake. So the name echidna was bestowed to this wonderful little creature because it had mammalian traits and also reptile-like traits. Like snakes, echidna young also have an egg tooth, which allows them to rip through their leathery egg. However, one adorable thing about baby echidnas is that they are known as puggles, and I think that is an appropriately adorable name for a wonderfully cute creature. Evidently, this video has shown you that there is a lot to know about eggs, and I have only really scratched the surface of this topic. So if you have any other questions, maybe you fancy another video about eggs, maybe delving into aquatic eggs rather than just terrestrial ones, then leave a comment below. You can even request a different topic if you have anything you particularly find interesting that you'd like to know more about. Links to the paper that I mentioned earlier in this video will be down in the description below, along with a couple of other papers which helped me gather information for this video. But anyway, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to learn more.